And hello, my fellow vapers and smokers watching the Smoker Show Tuesday night again. Today, June the 19th, 2018. And as always, I am joined by my good friend, my buddy, my pal, my brother from another mother, Mr. Phil Busardo. What's up, Phil? Oh, I think I think the video's broke. It's stuck. What's going on?
I'm here.
Here. We had a little panic before the episode started, and for once, it was not my fault.
Yeah, but now it is, because I still see this presentation is intended for adults only.
Oh, you're probably buffering. Oh, on mine here, I'll fix it. Don't worry about that. You keep going. You keep going.
We need that. I'll keep going. This presentation is intended for adults only. Oh, wait, now I see. Oh, yeah, there we are. Yay! Yay! I'm in a really good mood today, and I don't know why.
Good.
I don't know. I think it's because we're gonna see each other in California.
That's pretty exciting.
I think that's one of the reasons why. And then a little bit of a break. Time to go home and spend some time with family and friends for a little while.
Yeah. So
and I believe you're doing the same thing.
Absolutely. So programming note, where are we going to be this weekend, Phil?
We are going to be in California Saturday, June 23rd at the e-cig Gallery. I think it's like a grand opening celebration, but Ed did this last year as well, and it was a really, really fun time. It's kind of like a small outdoor vape event, right? But it's going to be June 23rd, Saturday at 24781 Alicia Parkway, Suite D in Laguna Hills, California. I am going to be there, and I'm going to be joined by my brother from a Greek mother, Dimitri. Nick Grim Green is going to be there. Matt Cully, aka Suck My Mod, is going to be there, and of course, DJ LED
and LSB and LED. Of course.
Yes. And you know, it's going to be fun because I just talked about this in the review that I put out today. After we have the whole event thing, we're going to go and drive go-karts, right?
Yep.
And I know I had a great time doing that last year. I tried to tell Ed that I would tip him like 20, like not that he needs the $20, but I would tip him $20 to give me the faster car over you, right? And I think we'll all have a good time except for Daniel, DJ LSB, because he'll probably be too busy like tearing one apart and trying to figure out.
He's going to try to mod it to go fast. But yeah, it is exciting. And I do know that, you know, sometimes we think about California and the culture and the clouds and all that, but we are going to be having the new 𝗜𝗡𝗡𝗢𝗡 Chroma A Zenith kits, the new colors with a plexus coil as well too, and we're really, really excited about that. So, it doesn't really make a difference what you come out to that event for. If you're a smoker, if you're a new vapor, if you're an MTLer, if you're a sub-ohmer, there's something there for everybody. So we're really, really excited to come out.
Even if you just are in love with Dimitri, I mean, that alone is reason to go to the event right there.
And I do give really good hugs as well too. So really, really excited about that trip. I do want to remind you that this program is intended for adults only. So please check your local tobacco laws and use these products at your own risk. So we got through that. I've had a up and down week. I've had good days and bad days.
I'm sorry.
today was a pretty good day. I'm lacking in sleep the last 3 or 4 days. I haven't been able to sleep for various reasons. More than like Saturday night I slept like 2 hours. Sunday night I slept like 3 hours. Yesterday I got like 6 hours. So I'm lacking a lot on sleep. I'm going to try to get caught up tonight. But
would
always
you like me to come over tonight and rub your temples for you?
That would be really, really sweet of you.
By the way, it is. I'm in Florida, as you guys know, and it is thundering outside. So if all of a sudden I disappear, you'll know why, because just everything went down.
That would break my heart. But this show that they're watching right now, Phil, is of course the Smoker Show. So once again, we want to remind you of what is vaping for those of you that are smokers or beginner vapers or dual users that are looking to make the full transition.
Yeah, and before we actually read that, I just want to remind everybody the purpose of this show, right? Because this show isn't necessarily for vapers. We certainly appreciate that a lot of vapers watch the show, reviewers watch the show, but what we really want is we want to tell you as vapers to send smokers to this show, because we go over some really basic, really simple information. We bring up different topics. This show is designed for the adult smoker. It's not designed for the younger generation, maybe the generation that doesn't smoke and doesn't vape. Good, continue to do neither of those things. But we are looking for the adult smoker who wants to make a transition to a healthier lifestyle, okay? That's why we're here.
Absolutely. By the way, just a little comment from the chat. You get Tanner and Tanner on every episode.
I did, I'm trying to spend a little bit more time outside, and yeah, like literally you go out there for 10 minutes and well, I mean, I have a beautiful Italian, olive complexion.
You do. We do want to remind everybody that we have 3 primary sponsors, and we certainly appreciate them that make this show possible. And that is Inikin Technology, of course, makers of our products as well, too. Joyetech, and the wonderful, delicious 5-Pawn signature vapor liquid all the way from California. And our telephone lines are brought to you by the only vaping content magazine, the Vaping Advocate. 215-383-5752. You press 1 when you dial in, and I will see you in queue, and I will bring you up, and you get to talk to the Italian stallion. How exciting is that?
It is very exciting. And by the way, I might just add, as I get Tanner and Tanner, and I do want to say hello to Scott, as I get Tanner and Tanner, you get kind of pastier and pastier.
I am really, really pasty. Everybody at the poker game makes fun of me yesterday, every week, but yesterday especially, it seems like I am getting wider and wider. Speaking of Scott, that's in the chat now, I got to see Scott and Mike Vapes over the weekend here in Chattanooga for the Vapers Carnival, so it was really, really nice to see them. Cool. We didn't get a chance to hang out much, but you know how that happens in events all the time. So plus, they got all the groupies around them. I couldn't get through to them. So having said that, Phil, what is vaping? What is vaping?
Let's take a look. In the context of this show and information provided, vaping is the act of using an EVP or an e-liquid vaping product. You might know that as an electronic cigarette. You might know that as a vaporizer. You might know that as a personal vaporizer. You might know that as a mod or an all-in-one or a pod. There's a lot of things that we call them, but that is what vaping is. And the e-liquid may or may not contain nicotine.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people do forget, is that there are people that do vape zero nicotine for whatever reason it is. And again, it's not something that we should shun upon. It's not something that we should shame, right? I mean, vaping is vaping no matter which way you do it. You're doing it right as long as you're not smoking, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
But my good friend Phil, is vaping safe? I mean, seriously, is vaping safe?
Okay. So, although most studies conclude that vaping is far safer than smoking, we've seen a lot of those studies. We strongly recommend that if you do neither, continue to do neither. So I kind of have this little scale here, and it says, well, smoking equals bad. Reducing cigarettes through the use of vaping, that equals good. Eliminating cigarettes completely through the use of vaping, that is better. But always remember, guys, that not smoking and not vaping is best. Also remember that if you do see a negative article about vaping, question the source of the article, question who did the study, but mostly question whether or not the article compared that negative information to that same negative information of a traditional combustible tobacco cigarette. Because if it doesn't, we don't think it's valid. People have to remember that vaping is not harm elimination. Vaping is harm reduction.
There was a really good article today that I posted on my Facebook that talked about just reduced harm in general, right? And they brought up some examples. Seatbelts on cars, right? Seatbelts do not eliminate the harm in case of a crash, but they drastically reduce the chances that you're going to die.
Sure.
So it's a form of harm reduction. Condoms is another example. Condoms do not guarantee you're not going to get an STD or pregnant as well too, but it drastically reduces the chances for that during sexual intercourse.
Right.
So if another prime example is needle exchange programs or methadone for opiate use and so forth and so forth. So if we believe in this form of harm reduction, no matter what it is, it seems to me really, really odd, especially here in the United States. We're having a lot of pressure from the government not to believe in harm reduction in smoking, right? And another thing that I do want to bring up, you are going to see, if you're a smoker, a lot of press about kids picking up vaping. And I think that the message that's being lost here and the headline is that smoking for teens is at an all-time low. And they use kids purposely, okay? They're putting that 17-year-old in that same category of a kid. If somebody has started smoking at 13, by the time they're 17, they're a 4-year addicted smoker. You know, that falls into the category of a youth, not a kid, right? So don't believe the kind of manipulation that we're seeing from the media on this particular. I mean, there's millions of reasons why they're fighting vaping, but that it harms you more than cigarettes is definitely not a valid one.
No, I don't think it's a valid one. You know, there's a lot of arguments out there that say, well, it's going to be generations before we find out truly what vaping does to you. And I think, you know, I think for the most part that's true. But I also think that we have some really, really good information now that we can base that it's far safer than smoking a traditional tobacco cigarette. There's also a lot of people that point to, well, you know, when smoking first came out, they said that was good too. Well, when smoking first came out, it was a much, much different world with much, much different science than we have today. So I wouldn't use that as a valid argument.
Yeah, I think that if you know what would be a really good idea, and this just came to me, Phil, is one of the slides we should just create a collection that debunks at least most like all combined into one instead of doing individual ones. So maybe we'll work on that in the next couple of weeks and upload it on tastyjuice.com.
Yeah, and by the way, let me go ahead and convert that to what it actually means. Phil, go ahead and do that, and I'll use the slide. That's really what it means.
Yeah. All right, so Phil, I want to get to vaping. I really want to start vaping. I'm a smoking. I've tried everything that's available out there. What do I have to do?
What do you have to do? Well, I mean, it's different. Vaping is going to be a little bit different from smoking is, okay? When it comes to cigarettes, it's actually a very, very easy thing to do. You're going to remove a stick out of a box and you're going to light it on fire and you're going to use it. There's no fiddliness. There's no guessing. There's no potential leaking, or there's no issues with smoking. So, I mean, that's probably one of the problems and why this technology hasn't taken off as well as it has. It's a little bit more work. I almost like to think that a pipe smoker, right, a tobacco pipe smoker would have an easier time transitioning over to vapor. Why is that? Because they have to clean their pipe. They have to maintain their pipe. They understand that there's a little bit more going on there than just pulling a stick out of a box and lighting it on fire. So let's talk about what you would have to do, right, outside of pulling a stick out of a box and lighting it on fire. So I kind of looked at a couple of different electronic cigarette types here, and we'll start with the closed pod type system. So what do you have to do with that on an ongoing basis? You have to charge it. You have to keep it charged. These all have some kind of an internal battery or some kind of a removable, replaceable battery. Those batteries need to be charged, okay? So in a closed pod system, though, you're not going to have to fill it because the e-liquid is already in the pod. So when the pod is empty, you're going to take that pod off, you're going to throw it away, you're going to replace it with another pod. As far as the ease of use when it comes to using electronic cigarettes, a closed pod system is probably the easiest, right? Then we move to an open pod system. An open pod, what does that mean? That means that the pod is refillable. It's refillable. So what do you have to do with an open pod type system? Same thing. I mean, you're still going to have to charge it. In this case, you're going to have to fill the pods. And depending on what kind of pod system you have, you may need to, well, you're probably going to replace the pods, but you may need to change the coil heads. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. We also have all-in-one type systems like the Joyetech Ego AIO. with something like that. Again, you're going to have to charge it. You're going to have to fill it with e-liquid. When the e-liquid is empty, you are going to have to replace the coil heads on an ongoing basis, and you might want to give it a cleaning every now and then. Then we move to tanks, okay, and I'm talking about not rebuildables yet. We're talking about replaceable coil head tanks. Very similar to all-in-ones. You're going to have to fill the tank with e-liquid. When it's empty, you are going to have to replace those coil heads on an ongoing basis and potentially give it a cleaning, especially before you put a different flavored liquid in there. And then we go to rebuildable tanks. That's going to be the most complex that's actually here on the screen. With a rebuildable tank, you're going to have to create and install the build yourself. You're going to have to wick it. You're going to have to replace the wick. You're going to have to replace the coil every now and then. And you're going to have to fill it with e-liquid when it's empty and clean it as well. So those are some of the things that you have to think about that you are going to have to do on an ongoing basis when it comes to vaping as opposed to smoking.
And we are going to show you the top 3 categories today, since this is kind of like a pod episode, the 3 different pod systems that are out there, the AIO, the refillable, and the closed vapor product system. The one thing that you have to take in consideration is budget as well too. You know, how much money do you want to spend versus what you're spending on cigarettes if you were looking to save money as well too. So there's things that you can start off with and eventually transition to different things as well too. And we're going to cover kind of the financial aspect of it as well too.
Yes. Yes,
so
we are.
As a smoker transitioning, Phil, I'm going to need some consumables, right? I'm going to need some products to buy to keep me vaping, right?
You sure are. You know, much like with the pack of cigarettes, when you get down to your last cigarette, you throw the pack away and you go buy another pack of cigarettes. Mm-hmm. What are some of the other consumables when it comes to smoking? Maybe a lighter, maybe matches, although people don't tend to use that. They go to somebody else who smokes and they ask, can I have a light? But what are the consumables when it comes to vaping? With a closed pod type system, it's the pod, okay? Just the pod. We don't have to worry about e-liquid because the pod already contains e-liquid. With an open pod type system, and I mean, the device itself could also be a consumable because eventually maybe the battery will, just won't hold a charge anymore or the device breaks. So you could consider that a consumable, but I'm not talking about that on this slide, okay? Open pod type systems, what are your consumables? The pod itself, the pod is going to have to be replaced over time, and the e-liquid that you're going to have to put in the pod to fill it. All in one, and by the way, open pod type systems, it could also be a coil head. Again, that's something we're going to talk about in this episode. Mm-hmm. All in ones, what's your consumables there? The e-liquid and the coil heads. Those are the most basic things. We could also talk about things like, if the glass breaks or the O-rings, but that's not really a topic for this slide, but mm-hmm. It could be considered as well. So that's all in ones. Tanks, replaceable coil heads. Your consumables are going to be your e-liquid and your coil heads that need to be replaced on occasion. Mm-hmm. And of course, the rebuildables, what's the consumables there? That's going to be your e-liquid, your coiling material, whatever wire you choose, and of course, your wicking material as well.
And I think that pretty much covers the basics of it. And sometimes, I think as vapors evolve and you become a full-time vapor, you see all the new stuff that comes out there. I think a lot of people have this misconception that vaping is expensive. And it can be. I'm not going to lie to you, especially if you get into the situation where you become a hobbyist, as we call them, or an advanced hobbyist collector, or any of those terms that are being used. But there is plenty of options out there to keep vaping at a low price. In my opinion, I think it's very, very simple to be able to vape in today's market with under $60 to $80 a month, which, depending on what state you live, that could be as much as 1/4 of what you're spending on cigarettes right now. So, it's one of the biggest struggles that a smoker has, Phil, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when they're out and about using a device or when they interact with other vapors and they see other equipment that some other people are using and they kind of feel inadequate maybe, and that kind of drives the desire to chase the dragon, as we say.
It shouldn't. How about that? It shouldn't. I'm sure it does, but it shouldn't. I also want to touch on something here that Polly said on the other side. But no, what this should be about is finding what works for you, okay? And ignoring everybody else and what everybody else is doing and how everybody else is doing it. Look, if you are using an Ego Twist with a CE tank on the top of it and you're not smoking, by golly, that's a great tank. That's a great device. That's a great setup. If you're still using a Joy 510 with standard atomizers, I don't even know if they make them anymore. But good for you. Okay, you're not smoking. Fantastic. So I don't care what you're using, but I think it is important to find something in your comfort zone. Find something that vapes the way you want to vape, and then get off those cigarettes.
Yeah, and don't be yeah. Go ahead.
But I did want to point out something that 𝗲𝗡𝗧 said on the side, because I think it's very important, and it's actually a lesson that I learned early on in my vaping career. Backups are so important. These are technology devices, right? And technology devices can break on you. Chances are, it's like if you have a full pack of cigarettes, what could possibly happen? It falls in a tub of water. Okay, it falls in a swimming pool. That pack of cigarettes is no good anymore. You got to buy a new pack. With vaping, it's kind of similar. If your device breaks, okay, chances are you're going to go, hopefully not buy a pack of cigarettes. You're going to go buy another vaping device. But that time that it's going to take for you to get another vaping device, it might tempt you to buy a pack of cigarettes, and we don't want that to happen. So always think about backups for your backups. I'll tell you a quick story. Back when I first started vaping, I think this is like the first year that I was vaping, I went on a vacation actually here to Florida, and I just had a single device. I had a couple cartomizers and a bottle of e-liquid. My device fell in the pool. I had another carto to replace it, but then I ran out of e-liquid. Now, back when that happened to me, there was no such thing as a vape shop. So it wasn't like I could go buy something anywhere, right? I was kind of stuck, and I had to grin and bear it until I got back home to my stash of e-liquid. So I think it is important to have backups for your backups. And you could always have your primary device, maybe something a little bit nicer, and backup device, maybe something small, simple, but at least something that'll get you by until you can replace your main device.
And that's what I was going to talk about, is that sometimes we do have different types of devices also for the setting that we're in. You know, maybe you want to go out to a nice dinner, maybe you want to go to a wedding, maybe you want to go to work. You don't want to carry a big device. You can have your smaller device, and then you can have a bigger device when you're at home and you're relaxing and you want more flavor, less nicotine. You can make the adjustments that way. But especially with a segment that we're going to cover today about pods, a pod is a great introduction to a smoker, but it is definitely not advised to be your only device when you're trying to switch, especially these small batteries that do have a higher failure rate. You know, they do have a charge cycle. You know, you can't use them for a very, very long time. And we're going to talk about that today as well, some of my experience with the cycle of some of these devices as well, too. So there's so many ways to vape that it does get confusing. And that's why the Smoker Show is here, to just kind of navigate you through those vape waters, right?
The vape waters. We're navigating you through the vape waters. Very well said there, Mr. Dimitri. And because this show is really kind of focusing on pods, I think, I have some experience with pods. I think Dimitri doing the PodMart show now is going to have a lot more experience. So maybe I'll just sit here and shut up and let Dimitri do the whole show. Take it away, Dimitri. No. I mean, my channel, of course, Vaping Greek, is focusing on pods. I did reviews from 2012 all the way up to late 2015. And I started back up now because we are seeing that influx of pods, and I am a high nicotine vapor. I think that I can test them out pretty good and give you my opinion on them. But again, the goal here is, because most of these YouTube videos, the majority of them are watched by vapors, it's more so to get information that a vapor could pass on to a smoker, like, hey, pick up this one to try. And also for a smoker that's looking for an alternative nicotine delivery device as well. I do have some of my top picks here at the end that I'm going to show you based on what I've tested out so far. And I do have 3 or 4 more reviews that are going out here in the next couple of weeks as well, too, that I'm still testing out as far as the devices are gone. But at the end of the day, Phil, it's about vape quality. It's about satisfaction. And no matter what you're using, especially you with your experience, I think that we have a lot of input to give. Yeah, I think we do. For me, I'm actually not a fan of the pod systems. There's a couple of them that I really like.
Right.
But because of how I vape, how I like to vape, the experience that I like, pod systems, I'll be honest with you, they're not doing it for me, okay? Maybe pod systems with like an 18 or a 24 standard nic or freebase nicotine, they would probably be a lot more satisfying for me. But a lot of the pods now, they have the salt nic, right? And I just am not a fan of the salt nic. I don't like the feeling that it gives me. I don't like the rush that it gives me. I don't like the sensation that it gives me. So for me personally, salts aren't doing it.
Yeah. I have my preferences even on salt nicotine as well, too. There's only a couple that satisfy me, to be fair. I think some of the ones that have the very, very smooth nicotine inside where you're not really feeling it, that you're actually vaping, don't do it for me. They don't satisfy me. But more so than that, it really depends on my setting as well, too. You know, I mean, nicotine satisfaction is basically a titration process. You're basically titrating your body to be satisfied with the amount of nicotine that you're getting. And for me, it's a combination of the feel, the throat feel, the nicotine absorption, and all that. For some people, it's just the nicotine absorption. So some people, it's just the throat here, like feel like that's the majority of that he enjoys as well too. So it might or it might not be for you. Again, the good thing about pods for an introductory piece, and that's why we're covering it here because it's the Smoker Show, it's an inexpensive way to try vaping, right? Is it the best way? Well, again, that's going to be determined by some of the things that we're going to talk in the end as well, too. And of course, your preference, mostly. And, you know, how many cigarettes that you smoke, what brand of cigarettes do you smoke, you know. There's so many variables. But they are a vital piece, I think, and I think that they are needed in the market today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm sorry, I was just reading some of the comments on the side here.
Yeah, the comments are going pretty fast. So with having said that, because time is moving along, let's get started. We need to get started.
We're going to get started?
What are you going to show us first?
What are we doing?
How
about we take a quick commercial break? Let's take care of one of our sponsors, and then we'll get to it.
All right, we'll be right back. And speaking of Joyetech e-leaf, the first product that we're going to see is going to be from Joyetech, and
it is going to be from Joyetech.
And before we get started, what category does the Joyetech Exceed fall into, Phil?
That's a really good question. That's a good question because, in my opinion, this is not a pod system. When I think about a pod, all right, I think the coil is part of the pod.
Right.
Right. To me, this is just a device with a strange shaped tank. Of course, the tank is proprietary, so there's another big difference. So the connection on the tank is proprietary. It's not going to work with any 510 device. But I mean, this is going to work just like any other tank system. Inside of the pod, there's going to be a coil head. That coil head is going to have to be replaced every now and then. So the good news is maybe the pod itself doesn't have to be replaced, just cleaned out, rinsed out. But with something like this, it's, like I said, it's just kind of like a regular all-in-one type device.
I did a little poll on my YouTube channel when I reviewed the Exceed, and yes. I got a lot of comments. And I think that one of the words that was brought up by Chris Johnson was hybrid. So it's kind of like in between a pod system and a tank system. So somewhere fits like somewhere there in the middle. And I agree with you. I mean, I'm putting it under the pod category simply because the stealth factor is small, whatever. You know, generally it's going to fall under that category. But the problem that I have is that here we go. Here's another terminology that comes into vaping to confuse people even more. So, you know,
I would actually think of it as less of a hybrid, because when I think of hybrid, I think of something else when it comes to vaping, right? I think a hybrid, where the atomizer attaches directly onto the device. So that's what I think when I think hybrid. When I think of these, I don't, I think I used the word crossover at one point, but in reality, they're all in ones, right? I mean, that's really kind of what they are. They're all in ones. They're not really pods the way I think of a pod anyway. Because they have a coil head.
Right. So let's go ahead and get started. You want to get into the technical specifications before we actually show the device?
Yeah, let's do that. But before we do that, let me just say that I haven't tried either of these, right? So I haven't tried the Exceed Edge, and I haven't tried the other one that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So this will be my first time using these and filling them and working with them. Okay, so let's go to the tech stuff.
All right, let me bring that up here, and here we go.
All right, so the Exceed Edge, what is it? Where you're going to get it? How much is it going to cost you? No, that's my reviews. We have a 650 milliamp hour internal battery on this one. The pod has a 2 mil capacity, 2 milliliters of e-liquid. The coil head is a 1.2 ohm coil head. That's the resistance of the coil head. It has an LED on it that flashes to show you the battery charge remaining. So if it's 60% to 100%, it just stays lit. 30% to 59%, it's going to be a slow flash, 10 to 29%, a moderate flash, 0 to 9%, a fast flash, and then eventually it's just going to flash at you and not work. This is going to have a micro USB connection for charging. It is going to have a 5-click on and off. It does have a manual switch. What is a manual switch? That means you have to push it. Some of the pods are automatics, which means the act of you taking a draw on the other device is going to activate it, but this does have a button that you have to push. Comes in a bunch of different colors: black, orange, yellow, red, silver, and rainbow.
Awesome. So switching now to this wonderful Busardo.
Hold on, I have a light.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to turn on my light so it'll be nice and bright.
Oh, we can see now.
Look at that. Okay. So, and that's really terrible lighting, but I'll work on that for the next show. So here it is. And like I said, I've never opened this up. So this is kind of exciting for me too. So what do we find here? That's going to be a spare O-ring. And that's going to be a plug, probably a plug for the pod. Here we have the device itself. Here's the device itself with the pod already attached. Here is the pod. So let's set this aside. We are going to have one coil head right here. Let's see what else we get. We get a micro USB charge cable. This is going to charge the device for you. We are going to get another coil head, and then probably a manual and some stickers and the warranty card and all that other good stuff. So let's see. What do we have to do? If I look at this, I see some knurling here. So right away, I think I have to unscrew this and put the coil head in. So let's do that. Let's unscrew this. And Dimitri, you've reviewed this. So if I'm screwing up, you let me know. Okay?
You're doing a wonderful job. You're doing a wonderful job.
Here's the coil head. So what am I going to fill this with? I'm going to fill this with a standard 12 milligram freebase because they do want to see if it satisfies me at that level.
Exactly right. And as we said, Phil, with anything that has a replaceable coil head, what is the golden rule?
Prime, always prime. Okay, look, inside this coil head, there's going to be some cotton material that is wrapped around a tiny little heating coil. Okay, if I fire this without that cotton material being fully saturated, the coil is going to get hot. It's going to burn that cotton pretty much instantly. And at that point, you have destroyed the coil head. Okay, it's not going to work for you anymore. It's going to taste horrible. And there's really no way to get that back. Okay, so it is very, very important to prime the coil head. Now, you could do that in a couple of different ways. You can go ahead and just put the coil head in dry, fill up the pod, and then let it sit for 10 minutes. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. Right, so I'm just going to put a couple drops of e-liquid on the wicking material that I can see in there. Let's do 1, let's do 2, let's do 3, and I'll let that soak in. I'll even look at these little ports here, these little ports that let the liquid in, right? And those little ports will eventually change color as the wicking material soaks up. It'll go from like a bright white to maybe a dimmer white.
The golden gates of liquid.
Yes, and I've seen that happen now. So let's see. Now I've got to take this and I have to screw it. Do I screw it in here like this? Yes, I do. Look at that. So I screw it into this little piece right here, and now I screw it into the pod. I did that in reverse. It actually has to go this way. No,
you screwed it on the wrong side of the base. It goes on the wrong
side. Yeah. See, it happens. It happens. This is my first experience with this. Look, I did it right that time.
You got it.
Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to take this, screw it into the pod. Now I have to fill the pod. The e-liquid, the coil head is already primed, and I have to fill the pod. So I'm going to look around here. I'm going to look around here for the fill port, and it's going to be right here under this plug. So I have to lift the plug. This is one of the things that I'm not a fan of with pod systems. I find tanks to be a lot easier to fill.
Right.
And if I look at this one, I can already see kind of a little problem here is that I've got a fill port, but I don't have any way for the air to escape while I'm filling this. So I got to be careful here that I don't pressurize.
Let me give you a little tip here before you fill it. Let me give you just a little tip. Hold the tank upright.
Like
and
this?
And go from the side with the e-liquid.
Okay, that's a pain in the butt, but I'll do it.
I know. And this is one of the things that I especially for older people that are trying to transition to these products, I highly do not recommend these at all. They're just very, very difficult to feel.
I think you called me old. Oh, look, see, I have some e-liquid dripping down the side now.
Yep.
Yeah, this is not the best system, right? Yeah, and the hole isn't big enough, so it's not letting air escape.
Yeah, you have to kind of like finagle your little tip where it leaves a little bit of air, and still you can feel it sideways. And
okay, that's a pain in the ass.
It is. It is. It really is. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely not one of my preferred filling methods in pods. That's for sure.
All right, so let's call this good enough at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that little flap right there. You can see the pod is filled for the most part. There's a little bit more room there.
Yeah. And just a little reminder on the chat that there are some new people watching, so I would appreciate if people were a little bit more, be careful with some of the terminology that might confuse some of the new viewers as well too. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm not watching the side.
I got you.
All right.
So wipe it down.
Yeah, I'm wiping it down. I got a lot of e-liquid on the side of that doing that fill. So now I'm going to attach it or put it back onto device, right? So I got to see how to do that. Looks like that right there. And then a lot of these devices will have an on and off, right? So this one, if I go ahead and click the fire button, nothing is happening. This whole kind of bar right here is the fire button. Hinged on the bottom, fires up here on the top. So, if I do that and nothing happens, that tells me right away that it does have an on and off. So it's usually a 5-click. Indicate products are usually 3 clicks. So let's go ahead and try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We see an LED start lighting here, and the device is now operating. So let's go ahead and get away from this camera, and we'll give it a vape.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see with your regular liquid on how you feel about it, because I have my impressions of it as well too, and I have actually 2 liquids loaded in mine as well too. But it'll be really, really interesting to see real time what your impression is going to be with vaping the Joyetech 𝗡𝗡𝗢𝗡.
Okay, so first of all, the device itself feels fantastic, really, really solid, and it has some weight to it. I actually prefer a device that has a little bit of weight to it. I don't know, maybe psychologically it convinces me that it's a little bit higher quality than something that's lighter. That's really not true, but it does feel nice and heavy. The fire button feels good on it. So let's go ahead and vape it and see what it's like. Okay, so the first thing that I notice is the draw is way too loose for a smoker. So it's not going to give you that tight cigarette draw, right? And that's something that this is something that I talk about so much, where somebody who's transitioning over to vaping, this might not be the right thing simply because of that. Simply because it's not a draw that they're used to. It's very, very open. I get a little bit of throat hit from this.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a satisfying vape, even at the 12 milligram. The things that I don't like about this, number one, is the looseness of the draw and the filling. But outside of that, good.
I'm with you on that. I'm going to tell you what, I have 12 milligram loaded in one pod here, and then I have 20 milligram nicotine salt loaded in the other one. At 12 milligram, I couldn't get through the day with it, to be honest with you. It wasn't, I did get a slight throat hit. I prefer an 18 milligram and above for regular nicotine in this. With the 20 milligram salt, I am happy, I'm satisfied with the vape. There is just a couple things for me as well. The draw is obviously one of them, that it is a little bit on the loose side. I can deal with it because I'm an experienced vaper, but like you said, somebody that's a beginner is going to have a harder time with it. But at 12 milligrams, I just don't think I would be able to. Well, I've tried it, and I couldn't get through the entire day. I felt myself like pulling on it too much, trying to get, my body the nicotine that I wanted.
Yeah, I think I think I would be able to vape this as my only, what do you call it, device. I think it would satisfy me personally enough at 12 milligram. I actually quite surprised by the experience. I think that if this was a little bit tighter, a little bit of a tighter draw, I think it would make for an extremely satisfying vape for me. And this is one of the things that I wish that some companies would think about, is that, you know, especially if you're going to put out a product like this that maybe is geared towards a smoker.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that don't give them this tip. I'm not saying don't give them this pod. I'm not saying don't give them this style of draw, this open of a draw, but maybe include another pod, maybe include a tighter pod, so that, you know, people can try both experiences and then say, you know what, this is the one that I like. So if I am going to buy more pods, I'm going to go get that pod.
Right.
Or this is the coil that I like. If I am going to go buy new coils, I'm going to go buy that coil. You know what I mean? Give the people, you know, an option.
I sometimes talk about the oomph. You know, are you feeling that oomph factor with the Exceed? Because I think that's very, very important. And by oomph factor, I mean, you know, there's that little punch, you know, when you draw on it.
You know, when I do the reviews, this is how I describe it, right? So I can use this all day and be satisfied. But if I go to another tank at the end of the day, and I have that experience, that, oh, there it is. Thank you. You know, that tells me that this doesn't have enough oomph for me.
Right.
But, you know, like everybody is going to be different. Smokers are going to be different. What is it? Maybe a smoker is going to love this. I don't know. So, you know, it's very, it's hard to recommend products to folks. But I think, you know, most important is try them. If you have the opportunity, try them. If you can go to a vape shop that allows you, and God knows there's less and less of those every day, but if you have a vape shop that is going to allow you to try the experience that you get from the device, I think that's so important before you spend your money.
Can you finagle a little bit around on the pod and see where the airflow comes in? Maybe you can tighten it up a little bit with your finger.
Well, you know, I wished that this did have an airflow controller. I do like, you know, things that have airflow controllers, because it allows you to mess with the airflow and to find something that's more comfortable for you.
Yeah. And again, I think that's one of the things that people have to expect with pods, is that you don't have the variability. We'll talk about that in the end. We don't want to give it away now, but you don't have the variability where you can adjust on the go depending on your maybe mood or your needs or what you want to do. It's pretty much, you know, with the exception of the Breeze 2 that has a small airflow controller on it, there's really not a lot of systems out there that have that ability to give you, you know, a little bit more power, a little bit less power, depending on the liquid and so forth and so forth.
I'm sure I look quite ridiculous, but I'm looking for where the air. Do you know where the airflow comes from?
I think it comes from the bottom. I think it takes some air from the bottom from the USB port, and it drives all the way back. And then I think it takes a little bit from the side where that little port is as well too. But I've tried it. I've tried it, and I hadn't been able to put my finger somewhere would be comfortable to hold to be able to adjust the airflow.
I absolutely could not figure out where the air is coming from.
Yeah, I think it's coming down from the USB port.
No, it can't be, because I can cover that up and it doesn't get tighter at all. Okay, but anyway, that is the Exceed Edge. Not a bad device if you if you do like a more open airflow.
I do like the looks of it. I do like, you know, it's got that whistle type tip up front. It's very, very comfortable. Just kind of position it on your bottom or your top lip, depending on which way you like to draw. I think it's sexy looking. I really do. I think it's a really, really nice design. And, you know, you got to hand it to them. I think that's something unique as well, too.
Yeah, I think, you know, Joyetech puts out some pretty good looking products, and I think that is a pretty good looking product right there.
Yeah.
And I notice if I use it upside down, it's really not horrible either.
Yeah. I think that when we're talking about that category of replacement coils, there's a few more devices out there. The Vaporesso Nexus, which I'm actually, it's going to be my second review this week, and I've been really enjoying using that. And we have the Aspire Breeze 2 as well too, which has that replaceable coil type system. Those are the ones that we can recommend. The best thing for this is, of course, try it before you buy it. I mean, I think this is something that vape shops, or that's what vape shops are for. Go in there and see if you can try it before you buy it, to make sure this is something that's going to satisfy you and you're going to enjoy the draw, right?
Yeah, really. The Aspire Breeze 2, I mean, I'll go ahead and reiterate what you said there. Of the systems like this that I have tried, this one I think has the most, as you call it, oomph. Okay.
Yeah.
I can use this and be extremely satisfied, and not go to that tank at the end of the day, pick up that tank, have that vape, and go, because I've been getting the all day long with the breeze too.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next piece that you are going to show us. And the next piece that you are going to show us is...
No, you should do one now.
Well, mine falls kind of under your category, so I'm going to do yours first, and then I'm going to switch over to mine as well, too. Because mine is going to be something new as well, too. I've had a prototype of this for a few months, but I've got the final version in today, so it'll be... Okay. I'm going to do a live one as well, too. But what you're going to be showing is something from France, right? From 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗢𝗓.
From France.
And that would be the...
That would be the, you got the card on it?
Sure do.
The Jwell La Carte. And I think this is under the Jwell line and not the Bow line. Although it could be under the Bow line too. I'm not really sure. But anyway, this one has a 400 milliamp hour internal battery. It has a 2 mil pod capacity. The coil heads on here, and I actually tested this one, 1.6 ohm pods. It has a tricolor LED system on it to show you the battery charge remaining. Blue is going to be full, white is going to be medium, red is going to be low. This one has 2 amp charging. So what does that mean? That means it's going to charge a little bit faster for you, which could be, certainly important on a device like this. One of the things that I really like on this, and I would like to see, even though Mooch is not going to agree with me on this, it does have a micro, or not a micro, but a USB-C connection for charging. I love the USB-C connection because, just like Dimitri, it goes both ways. Right. This one is going to have an automatic switch, which means the act of drawing on the device is going to activate it. And it does come in a black, a stainless steel, and a silver. So before we go to the close-up cam, let's go ahead and go back to my cam on this one, Demi. This is, it's really similar to the first Suorin that came out. What was it called? The Air,
yeah.
So I think it's a little bit thicker than that one, but you do kind of vape it on the side like a little card. The build on this one is really, really beautiful. So we got all stainless here. We have the pod that kind of comes off the side just like that. And again, this is another one that actually feels substantial, feels really, really solid, and feels nicely made. This one is going to have a switch on the side. Unfortunately, I don't have the full packaging for this because it actually came in a demo box that had a bunch of their products. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and pull the cartridge out, or the pod out. I'll see where to fill this. We'll fill it up, and then we'll vape it and see what it's like.
And I do want to remind all of our viewers that Bill is collecting your questions. So be patient. We will get to the questions that are relevant from the chat as well, too. And, of course, phone lines are open, okay? Phone lines are open. You can call us with any questions. The telephone number is 215-383-5752. And press 1, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. All right, so let me get rid of this. Or let me get to your close-up cam, Mr. Phil. There you go.
All right, here we go. So here is the what is it, the La Carte? Is that what it is? So the first of all, I'm noticing that this is a fingerprint magnet. So this one does show a lot of fingerprints, but it is also a pretty good looking device.
It is slick, man. It is sexy.
It is. It really is. It does come with a little leather pouch. Jwell's kind of known for that. Jwell actually makes a really beautiful product in their entire line.
French designers, man.
Yeah, yeah. This one, it looks like it's going to have a manual switch on the side of it here to turn the device on and off. So this isn't a 5-click or anything like that, but there's the little power switch for you right there. If we take a look at the bottom of this one, that's going to be the USB-C charge port. I believe that is the little LED right there. So let's go ahead and take the pod off and see where we fill this one. Again, it looks like we're going to have a little, these appear to be magnets, and these appear to be the 2 connection points for the coil that's inside. So it looks like this one is going to have one of those little plug things too. Looks like it's right here, and I pull this out. Now, this one's going to have a little bit of a larger filling port than the 𝗘𝗓𝗓 that we just looked at. So let me go ahead and fill this and see how this goes. Oh, this is going to fill a lot easier than the 𝗘𝗓𝗓. And I know I'm really not on camera right now. I'm trying to do this so that you can see it the best. But there's the fill port. So I am filling this up with e-liquid again. 2 mils of e-liquid in this one, and my pod is for the most part full, and I can go ahead and close this little plug right there. So, you know, even though there was only one hole there, one port to fill it, the hole was large enough to allow air to escape while I was filling it, which made this a lot easier to deal with than the 𝗘𝗓𝗓. So now here, One of the problems is that I can't prime that, can I?
No. So, and it's recommended this, you let it sit for 5 minutes. However, if you find where the air is coming from, you can kind of block the air with your finger and just kind of dry pull on it a little bit to force the e-liquid to get to the coil a little bit quicker. And as you notice, in that particular pod, there's only one wicking going into it. So some of the pods have dual wicks where it wicks from both sides. But on that one, you only got liquid coming in from one side. And you can see the cotton is actually white when you look through there. You want to make sure that that cotton turns color. So there is a spot on the bottom of the pod where the air comes that you can actually block it with your finger and then just kind of dry pull on it to accelerate the wicking of the system.
Yeah, and with this one, you don't even have to really do that. I mean, you certainly could, but because we have the on and off, right, we can actually turn the device off. We could put the pod on and just start taking unpowered pulls on this one too. And that's going to get things wicking too. So this is connected. Let me see if I have it turned on, and I don't. So we'll go to the other camera. We'll do some dry or unpowered puffs, and we'll get this going.
Now, one of the things that I noticed with that, let me get that out of there, because when I tried it for the first time, I used nicotine salt in there, and I again, it was kind of I hurried up a little bit, and I got dry hits galore with it. So that's why I'm giving you a little warning that make sure that it's good and prime before you actually begin to puff on it.
Got it. So what I'm doing right now, those are unpowered puffs. So the device is not turned on, right? So if the device was turned on and I was doing this, it would be activating, right? It would be sending power to the coil. And if the cotton material being used to direct the e-liquid to the coil wasn't saturated, it could potentially become burnt, like Dimitri was just talking about.
Yeah. Somebody did bring up a good point. What is the price point on these devices? So the Edge, the price has really dropped now. I can actually find it for like $20 online, anywhere between $20 and $30, depending on which website you do. Just do a little Google search. So the price points of these kind of start a little bit high, and there's a pod system counter every week, so the price point does drop after a while as well too. One of the things that I do want to mention when it comes to pod systems is there's just it's a flood. It's a flood of these products coming to the market. You have to be careful whichever one you're going to pick. That you're going to be able to find replacement pods as well too, which is a huge problem. Product comes out in the market, some people don't carry it, or it's not hot, or the hype goes away. There might be a less and less availability of these pods as well too. So try to choose something that you're seeing in various websites to assure that you're going to be able to find replacements.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the first thing that I notice when I put this in my mouth. Okay, the first thing that I notice is the transition between the pod and the device. I can feel that. I don't like feeling that. There is not a smooth transition there. Actually, if I rub my finger along here, I can feel where the device transitions into the pod. And when I put that in my mouth, I can feel that as well. So that's not a very comfortable experience. But let's go ahead and turn this on now. And the device is on. That little blue LED just kind of lit up. I don't know how well you can see that in the camera right there. But believe me, it is lit. So let's go ahead and vape this for the first time and see how this one compares to the Exceed.
Do it. It does look a little bit odd holding something square and vaping.
It looks a little weird, huh? Like I'm sucking on a credit card. Like
Corner card. I mean, it's sexy. Don't get me wrong, but it still looks a bit weird. I find myself, it's one of the reasons why the drop, I kind of enjoy the vape experience, but it's just the uncomfortable factor of it.
So I can tell already that this coil is going to need a little bit more breaking time than the Exceed to get going, right? Is that what you experienced too?
Absolutely.
It's starting to get vapor. It's starting to get flavor. The initial hits weren't very flavorful, or they had kind of an odd flavor. So if we compare this to this, right, I like the filling here better. I like the vape quality here a lot better, even though it's too loose. I'm getting more, as you say, oomph from this than I am from this. So this is going to have to be 18 or 24 freebase nicotine or a salt nic to even come close to satisfying me, because the 12 milligram in here is not going to do it. Right. So, still a nice looking little device here. But, like, let's say you're a vapor. You're a vapor and you like 12 milligram. You like 12 milligram in a tank. And that satisfies you. Here, it may continue to satisfy you. Here, not so much. Not so much.
I feel like we're so dead on this that I don't have much to add. It was not satisfying to me with regular nicotine, even at 18 milligram, believe it or not. So I think that you do need a higher nicotine to get the satisfaction out of this particular product.
And I think it's important to point out that that's not necessarily saying it's a bad product, right? Because a lot of the products that are coming out these days are designed for higher nicotine. The Joyetech Ego AIO Eco is the perfect example. The Vaporessa, no, this isn't a Vaporessa. What is this? Maybe it is a Vaporessa.
The Orca.
The Orca, yeah, the Orca Solo. Another good device, but really doesn't have that kick that I need to satisfy me. So you got to go up in nicotine. So again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing for this device, but it does lead to an important, it leads to something important. What do you choose as e-liquid when you go out and you buy e-liquid for these pods?
Right.
Can I go out and buy a super high VG cloud chasing e-liquid at 6 milligrams or 3 milligrams and have it work in here and be satisfied? And I think the answer is no. So I think it's really important that you know what kind of e-liquid that you need for these devices and what kind of e-liquid works best with these devices.
In my experience with reviewing the pod systems on my channel, I try to test them out with regular nicotine, salt nicotine, and a couple of different nicotine strengths as well too. It's one of the reasons why it takes me longer and every reviewer has a review of the pod out, but it takes me longer to get it out there. But I'd rather do that and tell you accurately. And I always suggest, what type of nicotine works best in it and what you're going to get the most satisfaction out of it. And of course, a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people might relate that we're downplaying the device or saying something bad about it. It really isn't. When it comes to pod systems, you have to look at what the manufacturer recommends. Okay, prime example, the last one that I did, the last review that I did, which I can't remember the name right now, but on the package it says that this has been designed for salt nicotine solution, right? So there you go. Right off the bat, the manufacturer has told you that you have salt nicotine to you have to use it inside this product. And then the other thing that you as a user should reach out to get more information. Reach out when you're buying this at a shop and ask them what works best in this. And if they don't know, maybe you should just go to another shop. But this is really, really key in order to get the satisfaction that you're looking at of a pod system.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm going back and forth here. I'm vaping. I'm reviewing in my head right now.
Right.
So I'm going here. Then I'm going here. So if I could combine these two devices, right? I want the flavor and hit from this one. I want the filling and draw from this one. If we could do that, it would be perfect for me. But that's always important. That's always important. What I just said for me.
Yeah. I'm going to switch to your camera while you continue to vaping, and I need just 1 minute because something is going off in the kitchen right now, and I'm by myself here, right? I'll be
what's going off in the kitchen?
It's like the alarm. I'll be right back.
Okay, Dimitri will be right back. And here I am with you guys with really nothing to talk to or talk about. What do you think is wrong in his kitchen? I mean, do you think, what kind of alarm is going off? I mean, was he microwaving something? Is his refrigerator door left open and maybe the refrigerator has an alarm on it? I don't know. I just don't know. But I am so excited for him to come back and tell us what kind of alarm is going off in his kitchen. Hopefully it'll be soon too, because I don't know how much I could just stay here and just talk to you guys all by myself. Welcome to the Smoker Show, everybody. I guess I'll look at some of the comments here that are on the side while my co-host turns off the alarm in his kitchen. Let's see. Hello, Bulbous Pig Balls. Are you going to keep that name going? Are you? Charlotte. Hello, Charlotte. Jay Jarry is here. Max Dow is here. Hello, Greg. T. Bisco is here. I saw a comment before. Yeah, it would be. I agree with you. I think it would be nice if some of these pod systems, or at least more of these pod systems, had airflow control on them. Even okay, so I'm looking at this device right here, and this is the Digiflavor U Pen. This device has almost nearly a perfect draw for me. Oh, look, he's back. This device has almost a nearly perfect draw for me, but I'm still going to give it a thumbs down because it doesn't have an airflow control. Because when I do the reviews, I'm thinking about more than just myself. I'm thinking about other people and what they're looking for in an electronic cigarette device. What happened, Demi? What was going on?
Here's my advice for you today.
Okay.
Don't want to ever have kids.
Oh.
The water ran out, and the water thing has a beeping thing when it goes when the water, like water fountain, right? You know what I'm talking about. It takes the big bottles of water on it.
Oh yeah, one of the ones that bubble up.
Right. So when the water goes down, it has an alarm. It beeps, beep, beep, beep. Well, the water went down. Nobody changed it. Guess who?
Your daughter.
Here you go. All right.
Not the dog.
Yeah.
Not the dog. Okay.
So
welcome back to the Smoker Show, Dimitri. It's good to have you back.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So, like I said, all the questions that you guys are putting in, we are collecting the questions, and we're going to go through them here in a little bit. The price on the Jwell a la carte is first search $49.99. Of course, always all the Jwell products a little bit on the high side as well too, but $49.99. I think it's a little bit on the pricey side for a pod system, but it is good. It's a good looking piece. I mean, it really is. It's a very, very solid piece as well too.
I think one of the things that I would really like to do on the next Smoker Show is look at a couple scenarios. Look at a starter kit price, your consumable prices, and kind of compare some different setups to what you would be looking at versus cigarettes, right?
Yes,
I think we should do something like that.
Start working on that field right now.
I will.
So along the lines of what you just showed, which is a pod system that you refill and eventually you do just toss out the pod, I do have something that just came in today. And this is the Suorin Vagon. They're running out of names. I am convinced that they're running out of names. This is a pod system from Suorin. Suorin, of course, the drop is one of my favorite pod systems, something that I use a lot, which is this device right here. Actually been using it a lot through the show. But this is their newest offering into the market. I will be doing a full review on this, but I have not used it yet. I have used the prototype, and I've had the prototype for 2 or 3 months while giving my feedback on it. One thing that I did notice is that the prototype had a button on it that you could actually manually press, or it did have an automatic fire. On the final product, there's no button, so it's just an automatic fire.
Hey, Dimitri, is it just me, or does that look a lot like the 𝗘𝗡𝗢?
It does look like the 𝗘𝗡𝗢 a little bit. They do have something that's a little bit different. Let me go ahead and open up the package here and show you. It is a sexy piece. I always enjoyed the Suorin products. I think that they do a really good job when it comes to pod systems. It does kind of have that same look, but instead of having that fire switch, what they decided to do is put like a little belt clip. You see it right there? So you can actually just kind of like hang it in your pocket on the inside, or you can just hang it on your belt, kind of like whoop, just like that, So that's a nice little touch. I don't think that's going to get that much use. I think, once again, it's one of these things that, something new and something different, and let's all buy it. But it is, again, something unique. So if you're looking for something that you can just put in your shirt pocket, you do have that little hook that they've kind of molded out there on the side. And pretty much like the one that you showed there, we do have an indicator light. This little V here for Vagon is actually the indicator light for the battery. And this one has a pod system that is removable, and you have to go and remove this little plastic and then fill up your little porthole. One of the things that I saw when I first saw this was, again, the filling system is really, really small. I mean, if you look at this little hole here, Phil, it is tiny. And it's one of the problems that I have with most of these pod systems. You can see you have to take that little rubberized stopper that they have on there and then just kind of fill it in. Before we get into that, let me show you what else comes in the packet. We do have a user manual. We do have...
I will say that you're not going to use it a lot. I actually quite like the idea of the belt clip.
I know that you use it. Again,
you know what? But I'm not even thinking about me. I'm thinking about like a woman who's got a purse and she wants to like have it handy for her, and she wants it not to fall over and potentially leak and things like that.
Sure.
That's kind of why I like that.
Sure. Again, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I don't think it's going to get some, like really real-time use. But in any case, that's not here or there. Inside the box, this has a little another little box. It has a USB cable. What else do we have inside here? Just a little safety warning and a quality control sticker. So you're only going to get one pod with this, just one pod. Again, I think that's a little bit of a drawback. I think at least, get 2 pods when you're doing these little systems, right? There's your little magnetic connectors where the pod goes in and touches, and then, that gives power to your actual coil to vape. So let's take a look at this little pod. Once again, like Phil said, we're going to refill this. And then, the lifespan on this is going to depend a lot on your liquid. With this particular one, the prototype that I tried, I got like 6 refills out of it before it was time to replace the coil. So not too long lasting. Salt nicotine actually does work on coils a little bit faster. Now, I mean, it kind of burns out coils a little bit faster. I love these little bottles. I use these for salt nicotine or for these pod systems because that hole is very, very small. If I try to get my, and I'm going to use the Silk Nic 20 milligram salt nicotine here, icebreakers, which is very, very heavy. But you can see this big tip that this, little small chubby Gorilla bottle has. It's just more difficult to get that in there, and it kind of blocks the air as well too. With these little needle tip bottles, you can actually get that into the hole, and that allows air to escape as well. So,
oh my, Dimitri, I'm having a nostalgia here moment. I haven't seen one of those little needle bottles in such a long time, and I used to use those all the time.
I know. Well, I got a pod system that actually that came with this, which was really, really nice. The fact that they offered that. So I've just been using it for salt nicotine. So now we have the pods.
I think that's terrific. I think that would be a great idea for any one of these pod systems, considering how small the holes, the fill holes are.
So now I'm going to push down the little rubber stopper there. Just make sure that it makes a good sealed connection. And, this one actually is only one way you can position the pod. It's not, where you can, it's not reversible because we do have the connectors only on one side. And
Jamie, I'm sorry. Can you push forward a little bit because there we go. The banners are in the way.
So here we have this little pod system. It can only go one way. And if you don't put it the right way, it actually flashes red and lets you know as well too, which I thought was a really cool feature. And this one's a little bit tight, but when you push it in there, it's ready to go. You did have a micro USB charge port here on the side. And, what we forgot to do is the technical stuff. So let me transition to that. And then I am going to vape it. So
Yay.
The Vagon, I think I'm saying that right. Vagon?
Vagon.
Vagon. The pod holds 2 mLs of liquid. It does have a 430 milliamp hour rechargeable battery. It outputs at 12 watts. The draw activated, of course, is, automatic. That's how it fires. It has a futuristic and slim design, ergonomic holster clip, LED battery light indicator, and micro USB charging port at 0.5 maximum, right?
Yep.
So let me, I'm going to go into a dual shot here. And, I'm a big fan of the Suorin products, again, with salt nicotine. None of the Suorin products have worked for me with regular nicotine. Even at 18 milligrams, I'm just not getting a satisfying vape. They are a really good vape. One of the things that I found really interesting about the Vagon is that here's a manufacturer that actually puts inside the life cycle. So they have done some testings, and they have said that this device lasts about 600 charges, right? This is a disposable device, guys. This is not a device you're going to keep for a couple of years. This is not a device that's going to be able to replace the battery. So keep that in the back of your head too, depending on, how much you vape. If you're going to charge it twice a day or 3 times sometimes a day, you probably got about 6-month life cycle on these batteries by the time it's time for you to recycle them and get something new. But this is actually in the manual, and I do like that, and I wish more manufacturers did that. It's a little bit more accurate for the consumer. It's a little bit more accurate for the new people that are trying vaping as well, too. I am going to just kind of draw on it just a little bit, kind of accelerate the process,
Good. While you're drawing on it.
You like it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, because really any device that has an internal battery is going to have a life cycle, right? That battery's not going to last you forever. Depending on the size of the battery, you're probably gonna need a lot more life on it. But when you shrink a battery down to the size of the milliamp hours that we're talking about, and when we do talk about milliamp hours, we're talking about the capacity of the battery, right? Typically, larger milliamp hour batteries are going to last you longer than smaller milliamp hour batteries, but they're going to also have less charge cycles, right? Yeah. So that's something that you do need to think about.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and put this on there. I think it's good to go now. Again, there's only one way to put it on. Yeah, it's very, very exciting. Like I said, I hope I'm not disappointed because I've always liked these products. The prototype did have a few issues. I hope they've been worked out. Again, this is the first time that I'm trying the actual product that went to the market. It is really interesting that they removed the button. I was against having a button and auto fire at the same time. I mean, that was just one of my feedback that I gave back because it becomes a little bit confusing. I'd rather it had only a button, especially these that are a little bit bigger pod systems on the market. I just think that the button makes a little bit more sense than having an auto fire. but they decided to go with the auto fire. But I do like that it doesn't have both of the options on there.
You know what's actually quite interesting about that, Dimitri, is that has gone the opposite direction of the Breeze 2, right? So with the original Breeze, we saw a fire switch, a manual switch, and we also saw an auto switch on it. With the Breeze 2, we see only the manual switch. Now on this, it started out with both, and now it's just auto.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It really is interesting. I'm a fan of the button. I'm just a fan. But again, I've been vaping for so long that I'm kind of used to it. I expect it, and I like when I hit that button, I know I'm going to get that satisfaction. With the auto fire, sometimes they misfire. Sometimes there's a lot of issues. The switches can get a little bit of dirt or lint inside, and you're done. It's not working. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. But that's not here or there. Let's go ahead and give the Vagon. I'm going to put the Vagon in my mouth, and I'm going to vape.
Another thing to think about, too, is that, well, cigarettes don't have a fire button, right? So the automatic switch does mimic a cigarette a little bit more than something with a button that you do have to push. So what's your take on that, pal?
It's impressive. I'm telling you. Just
Really?
it needs that high nicotine. It needs that high nicotine. But just like the other Suorin products, I'm telling you, just right off the bat, I got really good flavor. I mean, the vapor quality is good, and you can see the light.
I see the light. Nice looking little device there.
It has a little bit of a oomph as well too. I find that most Suorin products do that. I don't know if it has a little chip inside that gives it a little boost, but it does have a really good, just right off the bat, as soon as you draw on it, you get a satisfying vape. And most of the automatics don't do that. Most of the automatic pod systems, in my experience, and I say this on my channel all the time, you got to prime it. That means you got to pull on it a couple of times so that coil gets heated up, and then you get that good, satisfying vape on the third pull. On this one, it feels like right off the bat, you're getting a good, satisfying vape.
And by the way, when Dimitri's talking about priming there, he's talking about something different from priming your coil, right? So if I go back to the Jwell product, with something like this that does have an automatic fire, I'll tend to do this, getting it to heat up, working it, and then I'll take my drag. Right? So some devices, maybe like that one, might have like a little power curve built into it to put a little bit more power to the coil when you first take that drag, so that you're not working it and trying to get that coil to heat up before you take your drag.
It's really impressive, and I do agree. I did see a comment in the chat about the iShare. I was not impressed with the quality of the pods as well. So not all products of Suorin are good, but the drop has been one of my favorites. But this might quickly replace it. A couple things that I look for in a pod. I travel a lot, so I stealth vape a lot as well too. I don't like that LED is so bright. It is really bright.
Yeah,
kind of looks like that Star Trek. You're a Trekkie. What's it called?
The emblem?
Not the emblem, but the thing that they hold to talk.
The what?
The thing that they hold to talk. The communicator.
Communicator?
Yeah. I guess that's what it's called. I don't know. I've never watched Star Trek in my life.
Hey, I noticed something very important about the Exceed Edge. If you go ahead and go to my close-up camera.
Absolutely.
If you have a moment here.
I can do that all the time, buddy. There you go.
It also has a very unique fidget spinner.
There you go. Spin it.
I didn't know that. There you
it's
go.
Spinning.
Okay. You can come off that camera now.
I like it. It's
mesmerizing. Do we have time to film tonight?
It's mesmerizing. So that is the Vagon. Here's a little better look at it from here. And again, I'm going to compare it to the Exceed Edge simply because they look kind of the same. The mouthpiece is kind of the same. It's about the same size. The Exceed is a little bit thicker. This is a little bit slimmer. If I had to choose between the two, just my first experience, I would choose the Vagon over the Edge, of course, using higher nicotine concentration or solution.
How do you like the weight? Does it have a nice weight feel to it, like the Exceed Edge has?
It's much lighter than the Exceed, but it does still feel solid. I can't really complain. Again, with these fancy colors as well too. I think once again, I think that these products are mostly catered to smokers. Because I think that when we're looking for people that are transitioning, I don't think they want that flashy and the LEDs and the flashy colors as well too. I think most of the people are looking for stainless steel or black or something like that they can relate to. So I think again this is kind of geared towards that vape shop and the vapors that are dual using. By dual using, I mean they're using like a sub-ohm setup. Oops.
It actually took me when I first started vaping. With smaller devices with the Joy 510, and then the Ego batteries, and then the twist batteries. It actually took me a long time to say, you know what, I'm a vapor, screw it. I don't care, what I look like. I don't care if I carry around a bigger device. But back then, obviously, a lot of people asked me what I was using because it wasn't the norm back then. Obviously, it's a lot more accepted now. Accepted, by some people. But yeah, I mean, it took me a while to actually go to a larger device. I could even remember saying that I didn't want to review anything that looked like I was carrying around a science experiment. And then my first review with something larger was, I think, a Cardo tank, right? And then sure enough, I had this Cardo tank on an Ego twist battery, and it looked like I was walking around with a science experiment.
Absolutely.
But I totally understand that. I totally understand how people, might be put off by something larger like this or big box, right?
Yeah.
But maybe something smaller is appealing to people.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I had to restart the phone lines because I hit the button accidentally. But yeah, I'm really, really impressed with the Vagon, and the pricing on this is not too bad.
Show now, press 1.
$32.95. The first website that I brought up was Element Vape. $32.95. It is in stock now if you're interested in picking it up. And the replacement pods are a pack of 2 for $5. Which again begs the question of I need to switch to this. Which begs the question of again pricing. If you're gonna have to refill this about 6-7 times before you got to change the pod, you're gonna need higher nicotine solution, because a lower nicotine solution means you're gonna have to refill it 5-6 times a day in order to get the nicotine concentration that you want. Which means you're gonna need $2.50 a day for a pod, right? So it doesn't really make sense if this is gonna be your primary tool to vape.
Right. So again, keep in mind with that device, right, the coil is built into the pod, correct?
Correct.
Right. So, unlike the 𝗚𝗡𝗙 that has replaceable coil heads, that one you're going to replace the pod, which is going to have the coil built into it.
Yes. And just a reminder, we are picking up your questions from the chat. Don't worry, we will get to them. And the phone lines are back up, 215-383-5752 if you have any questions or comments. I do want to mention that I'm going to use this, obviously, for a couple of days. I want to see how the coil is going to break in flavor-wise, and I think this is important as well, too, because I think flavor does play a big role. Flavor-wise, right off the bat, it's not there yet compared to the drop, okay? And I think that has a lot to do because the drop has wicking coming from both sides. I don't know how this coil is set up. I'm going to take a look at it inside. But maybe if it breaks in a little bit, I think maybe the flavor will come back. So right off the bat, the flavor, not wow, or something that I can tell the difference between, especially with this nicotine salt that I use all the time, which is the icebreakers, and I absolutely love it.
That's actually you're talking about something there that maybe people are not familiar with, and it's probably something that we should talk about a little bit more. Break-in. What is break-in? Why do I have to? I don't have to break in a cigarette. Why do I have to break in my electronic cigarette?
Yeah, go ahead. Explain it to us.
That was for us to discuss, buddy.
Okay.
Yes, by the way, I still have the mini fit Just Fog. Maybe we'll talk about that on a future show.
Sure.
But so a lot of times, when you first fill these things up with e-liquid, that e-liquid is going through brand new cotton, right? It's going through, and you might taste that cotton. You might taste that filler material. You might not get the best taste right off the bat. Be patient. Be patient. Some devices take a little bit longer to break in. Some devices take a little bit less time to break in. But, eventually you are going to get the full flavor from your e-liquid if you're just a little bit patient. Okay. Why that is, like Dimitri said, well, maybe the coil of the wicking material is only going in from one side. Maybe some use more wicking material. Maybe some use less wicking material. I saw a comment before about the Boulder Rock. Am I right? That's the Boulder Rock. Very, very inexpensive refillable pod system, but it uses silica as opposed to cotton, which actually I don't like anymore. I didn't really like the flavor from the Boulder Rock, but these are just things that you're going to have to think about as a transitioning, smoker, somebody who's coming over to vaping. Some things that you're going to have to deal with.
Yes, absolutely. I do agree that just have a little bit of patience. I mean, you're trying to get off cigarettes. You're trying to improve your health. You're trying to quit this nasty habit. Just be a little bit patient. Unfortunately, vaping is not instant gratification. You have to work at it a little bit. So if you have to wait maybe 10, 20 puffs, or even a tank through a pod or a regular tank to get that good flavor, just kind of work with it. I mean, it's that or burn paper and tobacco and inhale into your lungs, right? So the trade-off, I think, there is pretty fair. If you're looking for that instant gratification, sometimes it just does not happen in vaping. It's something that you're going to have to accept.
Give your electronic cigarette the same chance that you gave your original cigarette as you coughed and hacked your way through that first one, and then before you know it, you were a smoker and you were hooked, right?
Absolutely. So let's take a break, and I got one more one more pod to show you, and then we're gonna get into some final thoughts.
For a long time, I thought that life would be one way, you know? You're in a hole that you can't dig yourself out of, and you just kind of accept that as reality. I started smoking at 13 years old, and I spent over 10 years of my life addicted to cigarettes. I remember telling myself, I'll give this up before I'm 16, before I'm 18, before I'm 21. The truth is that once I started, I was hooked, and I wouldn't even allow myself to come to terms with it. When I was about 26 years old, a close friend of mine started vaping and dropped a 2-pack-a-day habit overnight. After witnessing this incredible transformation myself, I dove headfirst into as much research as I could find. I picked up my first MTL vapor device in January of 2013, and the rest is history. Within a matter of weeks, my taste, smell, and breathing all improved drastically. I was able to run, hike, and actually be active for the first time in years. It was like discovering my life all over again. In my mind, it's really important to know that I will be here for the people that I care about in 20 years. Many people lose loved ones to smoking-related illness each year, and I don't want to be another one of those statistics. Thanks to vaping, I can breathe easy and enjoy my life to the fullest again. I don't really think you can put a price on something like that.
I really do like that video.
I do, and I think the important message to take away from that video there is that if you do vape the Aries, you will wake up next to a beautiful blonde in the morning.
No, you're not. You're not. I've tried many times. But anyway, the last pod system we want to show you is a pre-filled system, right? There's a lot of these available on the market. You can find them at gas stations. You can find them at C-stores. You can find them at supermarkets. You can find them at some drugstores, not CVS, because CVS is a pharmaceutical hack. But in any case, the most simpler of all the devices that are out there is a pre-filled pod system. So let me switch to my close-up camera here, and I am going to show you. I've done a full review of this on my channel, youtube.com, Vaping Greek. This is the One Mini. This is Italian design. You'll be happy about that, Phil.
I'm very happy.
And this is all it consists of. It's two pieces. You have the actual battery, and then you have a pod that has liquid, and I've actually vaped through this entire liquid, has liquid that's already pre-filled in this pod. There's really nothing to fill. The pods themselves, they come in a little box, and usually they're in a little blister pack. This particular one has three replacement pods in every packet. This is how they come. You basically just pop one out, and we're going to have to do that now because I've already vaped out the previous pod. It has a little cover there for your pod to keep it safe. You take the pod out. In this particular case, and most of the pre-filled pod systems that I have tried, there's really nothing to prime or anything, simply because the liquid has kind of been sitting there and it does touch the wicks down and it's ready to go. You just simply pop it inside the device and then you're ready to vape. This one does have a magnetic charger in the back. It doesn't have a micro USB, but you simply just attach it to your charger. And you can actually vape it while it's charging as well, too. So it does have that pass-through function. Speaking of, let me go ahead and put this up. This is the particular device that you're seeing now, 350 milliamp hour internal battery. Every pod holds 1.7 mil pre-filled liquid. It does have a magnetic connector, and it does have a pass-through function. One of the things that I really like about this is that it uses regular nicotine. It does not use salt nicotine. It has 2 strengths, 8 and 16 milligrams, so depending on how heavy of a smoker you are. And a lot of the tobacco flavors on this particular brand, the One Mini, are very, very good tobacco flavors for those that are looking to make the switch. So they have a very, very intense for somebody that's smokes a lot. They have some smoother, sweeter tobaccos as well too, depending on what type of brand or how much you smoke. And that's pretty much it. Nothing really to show on this one. It does have a light indicator. You're going to see it when I actually vaping it on the top camera. Now, I did promise I will show something for a very special guest that's in the chat.
Yes.
So, what did I do with it?
So much for that special guest.
Oh my God! What did I do with it?
There it is, under the keyboard.
No, it's not.
Look behind the couch. It's behind the couch.
It's not. Where? Oh, here it is.
There it is.
Nope, that's not it either.
No, that's not it.
Let me switch to the top camera and I'll find it. And then I'll go back and I'll do it here. Let me vape this one. And while I'm at it, I'm going to be looking at it. So this is the One Mini prefilled pod. There's a lot of them out there. The Jwell, there's the My Blue. There's a lot of these that you can pick up. Inexpensive. Well, in most cases, inexpensive to pick up to kind of give vaping a try. These, since they're a very, very small battery, they have a very, very small chamber, meaning that, the little pod and the little air chamber that goes up to give you the vapor, you're not going to get a big oomph. So what you're looking here basically is to get you some nicotine satisfaction. That's why a lot of these pre-filled systems use a higher nicotine concentrated solution. This particular one, even though it uses regular nicotine, they do have a chip that's developed to kind of give a little bit more power when you first pull on it. So it gives you a little bit more oomph at the beginning and then kind of throttles down as you continue to vape it. So you don't have to kind of like prime it to get a satisfactory vape. All right. What flavor is this? This is 16 milligram Starberry, which is a strawberry, which is the one that I like. Good.
Okay.
Here you go.
How many flavors do they have, pal?
They have about 7 flavors. Okay. Only a couple of fruits. The rest of them are all tobacco and menthol, which, again, this is designed to help people quit smoking. I like that approach that they took. But I'm sure they're going to release a few more flavor pods in the future as well, too. So here we go. You can see right off the bat, a decent amount of vapor. You hear that little crackling sound, letting you know that's giving you a little bit more power to the coil as soon as you know.
I actually love that crackling sound. To me, that's part of the experience for me.
I got to tell you, for me personally, this is one of the best pre-filled pod systems out there. And I hate to say that because it's Italian designers, and I don't want to give you that much credit. But it really, really is good. For regular 16 milligram nicotine, this is really, really satisfying to me.
What kind of charging did that one have on it, bud?
This does have a proprietary magnetic charger on the bottom. It does not have a micro USB. And again, this is a battery that's probably going to last you 3, 4, 5 months, maybe through the cycles as you're charging it. Not an all-day device. This one is $20 for the device only, and I think it's like $12 for the replacement pod, the pre-filled pods that go in there for $3. So price-wise, it's very, very economical. I think they're trying to go like, here's the hardware for a cheap price, and then just buy the pod systems. So for $20 to pick this up and give it to a smoker, unfortunately, they're not available in the USA yet, but I did hear from the manufacturer that they are coming here. So
good. Now, what's your take on that? A proprietary charger versus a micro USB? Because I have an opinion on it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of proprietary chargers, especially in a world where everybody has a micro USB charger on there. But I mean, it works for Apple, right? So, I mean, if you see it from that kind of angle, I get it. For this particular one, I'm not so upset as I am for something that is designed for mostly vapors, right? This, I'm really, really against it having a proprietary charger. I do like micro USB, and this one does have a micro USB, but there are other pod systems that do have proprietary chargers. But for this, again, this is something we're going to give to a smoker. It doesn't bother me as much. I'm put to you that way.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely prefer the micro USB, or like I said, I prefer the USB-C even more. Simply because I think that it gives you more charging options away from where you might be, right? So, if you're over at a friend's house, chances are they have a micro USB charger lying around in case you do run out of a battery power. But again, something important to think about, right? If you have a system like that, you may get a full day out of it. You may not get a full day out of it. It depends on how you vape, how much you're using the device, right?
Yeah.
So always think about backups for your backups. Always think about having a second device with you no matter where you go and where you travel, so that you don't run out of battery life, that you don't run out of e-liquid, you don't run out of your consumable, right? And you can go and you can pick up your secondary device, vape it, still be enjoyed, and not go buy a pack of cigarettes while you're waiting. Because see, that's going to be your excuse. That's going to be your excuse to buy that pack of cigarettes. Oh, well, I can't wait. This thing has to charge. I don't have my e-liquid with me. I got to go buy a pack of cigarettes. No, that's your excuse. Don't use that excuse. Have backups for your backups.
Yeah, and I think Mooch brings a good point as well too. Is not using the wrong charger. So when you're using a micro USB charger, are you using the right charger to charge your device? So that'll cut down a little bit on accidents as well too, especially for the new users. For this particular one, I'm not really concerned. So Max wanted to see, this is the iTaste version. This is Inikin's closed pod system that they've been working and developing on. So I just wanted to give it a little quick look. These are the pods. Of course, again, this is in a prototype stage. 25 and 45 milligram nicotine salt is going to be the availability of the product. And once again, just like the other one, this one does have a proprietary magnetic charger on the bottom. And we simply have a battery with a small light on top. Very, very simple. You just take your pod, put it in, and then you're ready to vape. Now, one of the things that I do like about this, Phil, and it's one of the things that makes me very, very happy, is the draw. The draw on this is just absolutely marvelous. And it's something that I think that a lot of smokers are going to be able to relate to.
That's the Inikin one? Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it might remind me. I haven't really used. I think I have one here, but it's kind of similar to the T18. I thought the draw was really good on the T18, which is why it's still one of the most recommended devices that I use for somebody who's making the transition. Mooch brought up a really good point, and I agree with him there, that the proprietary connections, the proprietary charges or chargers are probably a good idea, because you're not getting a $2 cable or some kind of cheap charge block or something like that that you might get from China. Having something proprietary is going to eliminate that potential for something to go wrong. But I mean, let's admit it, the devices really need to be created and engineered correctly. So, I mean, especially with micro USB, well, I mean, what can you plug one end into your device, and you can take that other end and you could plug it into pretty much everything or anything, right? So it's really important for the circuitry on the inside of your electronic cigarette to be done correctly to keep you out of trouble no matter what you plug that other end into.
I got a lot of nicotine quickly there. Puffing on that 45. Yeah, and $2, more like 2 cents for those USB chargers in China, by the way. I just want to put it out there. Yeah, so, overall, I'm just going to give you some talk picks, and then we're going to take some phone calls. So for my pod picks, and I've tested a lot of them. This is obviously based on stuff that I have tested already. For regular nicotine, I find that the Aspire Breeze, the Edge, again, with a higher, maybe the 18 milligram strength, and the Vaporesso Nexus are really, really good choices. Again, these are all replacement coils, so they might be a little bit more difficult for the new user to actually, get through the process of replacing the coil and priming it and all that. But they are really good devices. From refillable pods, the Smoant S8 for me is one of the best tight draw refillable pod systems out there. I continually like to use it because it's got that nice tight draw. It's a really good stealthy device. The Suorin drop is another one. The Vagon might overtake that in pretty soon. And I put the Boulder there, and I put it in parentheses because the Boulder is a nice little refillable pod that is very, very cheap. I think it's like $12 for the device. So if you wanted to give something to a smoker for a little gift that's inexpensive, go pick one up, put some nicotine salt inside or some high strength nicotine, and let him try it as well too. So that's why I added it on there. And then from pre-filled pods, obviously the Jwell is very, very successful, very, very popular. I think that high nicotine content strength that it has in there can help smokers quit, and that's why it sits on that list. The SM Pro is something that you don't hear a lot about. The SM Pro, in my opinion, again, with a high nicotine strength nicotine, it has like 45 or 50 if I'm not mistaken. It's a very good, enjoyable vape. It's just a little bit bigger than the Jwell, so that's going to be the difference between the two. And of course, I highly recommend the One Mini that with regular nicotine is one of the most satisfying pre-filled pods that's on the market, in my opinion, right now. So that's some of my top picks. Now, when it comes to the Nexus, it's really, really funny because I have 2 of them loaded up, just like I always do. I have on this one 12 milligram from 5 Ponds. Guess which liquid, Phil?
Symmetry.
Absolutely. I love when you finish my sentence. My favorite liquid, the Symmetry. I have 12 milligram loaded in this one. It's actually a very, very satisfying vape.
With 12?
With 12.
How does it compare to the Breeze 2?
You know, I'm giving it the edge, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. The only thing I wish it did, it had tighter draw. It's a looser draw. It's a looser draw.
It's too tight a draw?
It's too loose.
Too loose.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, as always.
You know, as the yeah, as far as your top picks, you know, I don't have the experience with pods that you have for the reasons I gave earlier on in the broadcast. But I will definitely agree with the Breeze too.
Yeah.
I think this one's really, really terrific.
20 milligram nicotine salt in this one, very, very intense, very, very good vape as well too on the next one. So I'm trying it with both of the nicotines that are out there. I don't like this mouthpiece. I just don't. It's too wide. I don't like. It's one of the things with the SMPO is that it's got a really good vape, but it has that really large. I just don't think smokers can gravitate to that as they could in a smaller Jwell type or whatever, you know, pod style system that's smaller. That mouthpiece to me is uncomfortable. It really is. Again, that's just a personal preference.
So you like small things in your mouth. That's what basically what
Yeah, that's why you're my buddy. All right, so I think we covered everything that we had to cover with the pods. Look at that. We got through it.
I think we did. We have plenty of time to take some calls here. I hope we do get some calls.
We've got a couple lined up. Yes, we've got a couple. Do you want to get questions first or you want to go phone calls first?
Well, if you got calls waiting, I mean, take the calls, man. I mean, that's very exciting. And by the way, well, I'm not even going to say anything because I'm not going to jinx it.
580, you're on the air with Phil and Demi. Can you cut down your radio, please? 580, you're on the air. Can you hear me?
580.
Don't be shy. 580.
Wait a second.
All right.
I mean, that's very exciting.
580 can't hear us.
He's got to catch up.
937, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Craig. I'm calling from, well, I'm in Kentucky right now, but I
Craig.
called in last show.
Yeah.
Hey. How are y'all doing tonight?
We're doing great. Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. I can't hear Phil. I couldn't hear him last time, so I think maybe Dimitri is conspiring against you, Phil.
I totally agree with that. Craig. He is.
You should be hearing him.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, my
Okay,
God.
go ahead.
I can hear you now.
All right, fantastic. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. So, last time I called in, you all sent me a Anakin Chroma and Zenith and a Gobi for my wife to try to get her to stop smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked me to call back in on this show. So here I am.
So walk us through the experience.
They're both excellent kits. The Chroma and Zenith is great. One of the things that I really love about it is as soon as you hit the fire button, it's going. There's no waiting on it. There's no primer puff. You don't have to puff it and then you get a good hit or anything like that. It's straight off the bat. Hit it and you're good. The Gobi is almost the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're trying to quit smoking, either one of these kits would be great.
Which one did your wife like better?
Well, okay. So there's two problems with the Gobi. One, it's not that easy to fill, and two, she lost it. So she stole my Chroma and Zenith.
Well, that's okay. As long as she's vaping, that's all that matters. You should be the good husband.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So she's been, I think it's been at least a week since she bought a pack of cigarettes.
That's
and,
fantastic.
Smoking friends are around. She would, bum one or two or whatever. But I think she's been a few days without smoking at all. So she's on the right track. She's actually listening to the show tonight.
Fantastic. What's her name?
So I've dragged her here. Jonna.
What's her name?
Jonna.
Jonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, John. I hope she stays off cigarettes. I think the trade-off that you're looking there, Greg, is that, yes, obviously when we're talking about the Zenith kit, it's a bigger device. It's a bigger tank. So sometimes that's intimidating. That's why I sent the Gobi as well, too, which is something smaller and women might gravitate to it. But I tell you what, once she gets over that hump, this is a trade-off that you're going to get, right? So you're going to have something that's a little bit larger to give you a little bit more satisfaction, right? So that's why I think it's good to have those various options so they can pick something up and see what they're going to gravitate towards.
But I
Right? Yeah, I totally agree.
Go ahead,
I
Phil.
think it's terrific. I think it's terrific that your wife is about a week out now without buying a pack of cigarettes. Something I noticed from my wife too. My wife was a real tough transition to vaping. I mean, I was vaping for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. And she's a really, really strong-willed woman. And, the more I kind of said, baby, you got to try vaping, the harder she would just push back, and she wanted nothing to do with it. And I would always put a little different device next to the bed, and a vaping device next to the bed. And I would put a different liquid there, and I'd give her all of these choices. And eventually, she picked it up and she started using it. And I noticed something actually very, very similar is that when she was around her friends who were smoking, or, some of them still smoke, she would ask for a cigarette. She would bum a cigarette. Thank God that doesn't happen anymore. So maybe that's something that your wife can work through, but just, remind her that vape is giving her everything that she needs, that she got from the cigarette. It's giving her the hand to mouth thing. It's giving her the oral fixation. It's giving her the flavor. It's giving her the throat hit. It's giving her the nicotine, and it's giving her fake smoke too. And just remind her how much you love her and how much you want her to spend the rest of her life with you. So, that's why it's important to give up the traditional tobacco cigarettes in favor of vaping.
Yeah. We're very, very happy for you, Greg, and tell her congratulations.
Right.
As always. Go ahead.
Yeah. Phil, you say strong will, I say stubborn or mule-headed. But
I didn't want to say that on the show.
So she knows. So yesterday I think it was yesterday, she was over at a friend's, and she sent me a message and say, hey, I was over there, and my friend was smoking, and I didn't even want one. So, we're getting past that already. So, we're both doing real well with these things.
Give her the space. I think that's what it is. Give her the space.
I think that's terrific too. When you find the device that satisfies you enough to not be a dual user, to transfer over to vaping 100%, and you just start vaping and vaping and vaping, I think what you're going to notice is that there's certain aspects to smoking cigarettes that are going to be potentially repulsive, okay? And those are, the ashes, the cigarette butts, the smell, the way it permeates your clothes and your car and your house, the film that you get on the walls and your windows. Those are all things that you're going to be like, wow, I really used to smell like that. I really used to have that ashtray full of cigarette butts. I'll never forget when I refurbished my office back in Rochester. Before I painted it, I just kind of took a wet paper towel and just wiped it on the wall, and just to see all that yellow and orange and brown on the paper towel. It's like, wow, that crap is in my lungs. So I think once you find that product that really, really works for you, it becomes harder and harder to go back to the cigarette and have an enjoyable experience with that.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I wish you best of luck with your wife. And if you need anything, you always know where to find us and reach out to us. Anything that we can do to help and assist her in her journey, we're here for you.
Yeah,
and get your wife. Thank you for everything.
Oh, my pleasure.
Get your wife a lanyard for the device so that she doesn't lose that one too. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Have a good one.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
That's really nice of him calling back and updating us on that. That's really good to hear. It does bring one question up that I do want to just cover before we get to the questions, Phil, is, how much is the pod system a hype? And how much is it beneficial when we're talking about trying to transition vapors? Because a lot of people talk about the smaller devices and the small stereos, but it seems like the pods are getting larger and larger. So how much do you think that carries the hype with the salt nicotine that's out there and the pod systems versus using a traditional set?
It probably depends on where you start and how you start, right? Because, when I started, it was just traditional nicotine. It was just freebase nicotine. It was smaller devices. I was looking for that cigarette kind of experience. And I still look for that. That's why I vape the way I do, because to me, it as closely resembles smoking a cigarette. I hate to say this way, but at heart, I'm still a smoker. but now I get my smoking experience from my vape, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is what happens with China. This is what happens with vaping. We see it with the flavors. Cereal flavors are hot. Everybody's making a cereal flavor. Custards are hot. Everybody's making a custard.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing now with these pod systems. Pod systems are hot. This is the new hotness, right? So we have tons of pod systems coming out. Whether or not they truly work to convert you is something that remains to be seen. We know Jwell has really good, market share.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is just kids using a Jwell, and how much of that is actually, smokers using it to successfully transfer off of cigarettes? I guess that remains to be seen.
Only
but,
time will tell.
For me, like I said at the beginning of the show, the pod systems just aren't doing it for me because of how I like to vape and because of the experience that I personally am looking for.
I'm just going to put this out there for you guys to think, and your viewers and your smokers or your new vapors. When we're talking about pod systems, especially when we get into this size here, right? You're looking to save some money. Here's just a couple of examples, all right? Here I have the iStick Pico Baby, right? Just a small all-in-one kit with a replaceable coil tank. It's kind of magnetic that sits in there. Here I have the Pebble, which is an Anakin device with a prototype 22 millimeter Zenith, which is coming out soon. So if you compare it even size-wise, Phil, we're not talking about a huge difference.
No.
And the vape quality you're going to get out of an open system like that versus something like this is going to be miles apart, simply because you have the adjustability of the wattage. You can make it warmer, you can make it cooler depending on the type of liquid. You have the airflow adjustment, obviously the ease of feel of use. And the same thing for this device as well, too. It's not that it's going to be an Anakin commercial, because there are a lot of small kits out there that give you a really, really satisfying vape. This is another device here. This is, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember which company made this. But anyway, it's just a small 1,300 milliamp hour battery, which is going to exceed any pod system that's out there, with a small, tank on there, even if it's a Nautilus Mini or something along those lines, will give you tremendous vape quality versus a pod system. But when we're talking about size, okay, because I hear this all the time, you really are not gaining anything. Again, now this is not to bash pods. It's just something to ponder. When we're talking about saving money and trying to convert smokers, you're going to get a little bit better vape quality once you get into something like a kit like this. This will give you the initiation, the ease of use. It's just something that's going to be easier to use. But don't think that this size is going to make a huge difference. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. Actually, when you look at the pods, you think to yourself, okay, well, where am I getting my benefit from with a pod system? They're smaller. Some of them are smaller. Now we're starting to see pod systems get larger and larger. What you just showed, the Aspire Breeze, that's not really a small product. But so where's the benefit? Okay, well, battery life on a traditional product is better. Typically, ease of use on a traditional product is better. Maybe changing the coil, maybe filling it. Vape satisfaction on a traditional product tends to be better. So, where's the benefit with a pod? I can see smaller pods having benefit at higher nicotine because it's a smaller device. It's a less in your face device. But when you get to the larger pod systems, I start to question, where's the benefit? Is this just following the pod wave and creating that next product for you to buy, or are they truly better?
I agree. Let me see if they have fixed their situation. 580, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Can you turn down your side of us so we don't hear ourselves twice? And what is your name? Where are you calling from?
Okay, this is Troy, a.k.a. Bear. Just thought I'd say hi, let you put a voice with the name, and say glad you guys are here, and I can't wait for next week's show.
Oh,
That's
my
it.
God.
I'll go back to the woodwork.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening. That's really, really sweet of you. Can't wait to see you next weekend as well, too. Very, very nice of Roy to call in. So yeah, it was just something out there for you guys to ponder. I mean, I got Symmetry in this one, 12 milligram, set at 16.5 watts with a 0.8 It's just a fantastic way, and it's small. I can conceal it. It's a small, stealthy device. I enjoy it. Not taking away anything from the pod systems at all. But again, this show is geared towards smokers, and smokers should have all that information. Smokers should know, new vapors should know that there's a big hype train in vaping, and everybody likes to jump on board. And just find whatever works for you. All right, let me look some of these questions here because they're piling up.
All right, good.
I'm going to go and start from the beginning.
That's a good place to start.
There's a lot of questions. Okay, and this is a very, very good point. The pods, especially the pre-filled pods, have a little bit of decency. Just like we did with cigarette butts, we don't want to fill the landfills with these. Try to recycle them. Try to collect them. Just don't throw them down in the street. The same with the replacement coils as well too. That's really, really good advice as well too.
And with a cigarette butt, don't throw a cigarette butt in the street. That's disgusting.
Yeah. Is there any true temperature-controlled pod systems yet? There's a couple of them out there that claim that, including the Vaporess or Nexus, and I will test it out. They say when the liquid runs out that it does stop. Actually, I've actually tried that. It does work that way. But I'm going to test it a little bit more before I make my final decision. The Vaporess or Nexus is definitely claiming to be a temperature control system, and I think there's it'll come to my mind right now. It's just
well, when you talk about pod systems, I think it's going to be less temperature control and more like burnt hit prevention, right? Because when I think of temperature control, I think of being able to control the temperature. Now, you really can't do that with any pod system, right?
Yeah.
But they may have something in there to sense when that coil's resistance is building up to a point where it says, okay, that pod is empty and I'm going to shut down, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would call it temperature control as much as I would call it burnt hit prevention.
Yeah. This is more of a shout out to Robert Shorkey. I was ready to quit. I bought the Breeze One and quit smoking cigarettes 1 week later. Been smoke free now since January 8th of this year after 34 years of smoking.
Love it.
That deserves a clap for Roberts and a shout out. A little bit off topic, and you address the future. Where could we find good liquid for new vapors? Definitely it's in the works of how we're going to go about that. I'm just going to give a little shout out. Nexteria, theplumeroom.com, mountainoakvapors.com. All of them have really good 50-50 beginner liquids, high nicotine strengths as well.
Delaware Vapor,
and of course our sponsor, 5 Ponds.
Yep.
Diacetyl, that's not for this episode. I apologize if this has been addressed. Which pod system, Phil and Demi, do you find the most satisfying? I think where throat hit is concerned. I think that's pretty simple for Phil. The Aspire Breeze 2. The Aspire Breeze 2 does it for me. I think the Vaporess or Nexus does as well too. But keep in mind, these are not like true pod systems. These are more of the AIO hybrid combination. We need to find a good word for that. At some point in the future.
You got me really curious about that, the Vaporess Nexus.
Yeah, you should open it up and try it. It does have a decent...
I don't know if I have one or not.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming it came. Maybe you haven't opened up the box.
I don't know.
But the Nexus does have a good throw hit. And the Suorin products with that higher milligram strength, they do. So I hope that addresses that question as well too. Is salt nic available in the EU? Absolutely, but up to 20 milligram in most countries that are part of the TPD. 20 milligram maximum strength. So that kind of defeats the purpose a little bit for these pod systems. If you can't get it in that higher nicotine strength, I don't know how Jwell is going to launch in the EU. I don't know how they're going to do it with 20 milligram instead of the 50 that you usually do.
That's a good point.
Would a 20 milligram salt nicotine make a significant difference versus a 20 milligram normal nicotine for a heavy smoker? My mom is on 2 packs a day. Previous attempts to get her to switch have failed. I particularly think for a very, very heavy smoker, 20 milligram regular nicotine is better than 20 milligram nicotine salt. If you are going to go the salt nic route, I suggest you go higher in the 40, 45, 50 milligram range. The 20 milligram salt is not going to satisfy our throat heat-wise. For somebody that smokes 2 packs a day, they're probably not going to be able to fill it. The 20 milligram free-base nicotine is a little bit harsher. It's a little bit more oomph, in the throat as well too. So my particular, and correct me if you disagree, Phil, for my advice to you would be 20 milligram regular nicotine is probably better, even 24.
I think if the choice is between a 20 milligram freebase and a 20 milligram salt, I think it's going to be a 20 milligram is going to be a little bit harsh. Okay. But of course it depends on what you're using that in too. So if you're using it in one of these like lower powered pod systems that we're talking about, where higher nicotine freebase just works better and feels better, I would say, yeah, the 20 milligram freebase. Now, if you want to go to a nic salt, she's a heavier smoker, then yeah, I would probably say higher than a 20.
All right, let me go through this question. There is a mod that takes 2 AA disposable batteries. Again, this is... I
saw that, yeah.
I have it here. I wasn't really impressed with the vape quality of it. It takes the Ego Echo. It's a mouthful. Try to say that very fast. Ego Echo AIO.
Good job, Demi.
𝗜𝗡𝗡𝗢𝗡 type coils in this device, and it does come with 2 batteries. And it's kind of like if you're on the go and you need to have a vape or whatever. I wasn't really impressed with a quality vape. I'm against using those type of batteries. This device actually is designed that can handle those type of batteries. I'm against it. I don't think it really took off anyway. I don't think it's picked up any steam in the industry. I think we're gonna kind of see it going away. I'm not a fan of it. Basically, is what I'm saying, right, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another thing that I would look at and like, well, where's the benefit? I guess, well, if you're out and you're out of a charge, you can always pick up 2 batteries anywhere, right? But as your only device, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you're going to be, all of a sudden batteries now become your consumable, right?
Yeah. So in my opinion, once again, I'm going to say it, I've said it a million times. If you have, your average smoker, right? Your average transitioning person, of course, there are special cases here and there, okay? But the majority of people, a tank like the Nautilus, like the Zenith, with 12 to 18 milligram regular nicotine and a small variable wattage device is a really good start. Not, again, taking anything away from the pods, but if somebody's serious about quitting, it's a very, very good chance that they will do it with that setup. Now, again, for the variables that are there, pricing, what you're going to spend, what you're looking for, pod systems are a great way to introduce smokers into vaping. But very quickly, after a couple of days of use, they might not be satisfied enough, and they're going to look at that next step. How can I take it to the next step? Just like we heard with Greg's wife as well too. I met Miranda at the Chattanooga show this past week. I think I said her name correctly. I just followed her on Instagram as well too a couple of days ago. Her and her husband were at the Chattanooga Expo. She came and said hi, and she said the same thing. She started with a small device. Quickly, she started using her husband's bigger device, and she wanted to transition to that because it was more satisfying. So keep that in mind that a lot of these people that are transitioning, they might be very, very happy for the first 24, 48 hours, but very quickly they might have to go, take it to the next level. The pod system might not be a long-term solution for them.
Yeah.
I like how you.
Yeah.
All right, we got 5 more minutes on the phone lines. If anybody wants to call in, you're more than welcome to. And I think I've covered all the questions, believe it or not.
That was it?
Yeah.
All right, so last minute questions, get them in. Last minute phone calls, get them in, and we'll do the best that we can to answer everybody.
Just a reminder, where are we going to be this weekend, Phil?
California, and to all the folks that were looking forward to seeing us up in Toronto, we do apologize. I don't think we've ever missed a Toronto or a Canadian show. This one, unfortunately, we do have to miss because we are going to be at the 𝗜𝗔𝗪𝗓 Gallery grand opening event. That's going to be Saturday, June 23rd. 24781 Alicia Parkway, Suite D, Laguna Hills, California. We're going to be joined by, and like I said, Ed did this last year, and it was a really, really fun event. It's like a small outdoor vape event, and Inikin's going to be there. There's going to be a whole bunch of vendors there.
California outdoors in the summer, boy, sounds a lot of fun for me and you.
Hey, well, I'm a Florida guy now. I'm curious to see.
And you're miserable. You stay indoors all day. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. Good point. Yeah, I'm working all the time. So anyway, Mr. Nick Grim Green is going to be there. I would love to have a little conversation with him about Star Wars and how he feels about the new movies. Of course, Dimitri, I believe you're going to be there. Matt, Suck My Mods is going to be there. And of course, DJ LSB is going to be there. Oh, look at that. I said it the right way.
Said it right. Hey, by the way, you notice something in the picture is that Nick is by himself, Matt is by himself, Daniel is by himself, and the picture has me and you together. I mean, if that does not spell bromance, I don't know what does.
Ed saved a little bit of money by using just one photo of the two of us together. I think that's what he did. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure that's going to be good.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Well, we did cover everything. I do want to remind that it's up to you, the vapors that are watching the show, to help your friends and family switch to vaping, and you can save a life. Guys, this is very, very important to me, and it's very, very important to Phil, and that's why we do this every couple of weeks. We're trying to help smokers convert. So keep that in mind always.
It is. And when we get those calls from Craig, letting us know that, maybe we made a little bit of a difference by sending them a product or by this show. I mean, that's what this is all about, guys. Converting smokers, maybe helping people live a little bit longer, allowing people to see their kids grow up or their grandkids grow up. That's really important to me and Dimitri, and I hope it's important to you guys too. And it's why we hope that you share the information about this show and get more smokers to watch. Maybe together, me, Dimitri, along with your help, we can get some more smokers to convert, because it's very easy to reach vapers. I could put out a review video, the other reviewers could put out review videos, and we all reach a bunch of vapers. But the challenge is, how do we invite more smokers into this? How do we get to talk to more smokers? And we hope we're trying to do. We hope we're doing that with this show.
And if all else fails, just put a Skechers shoe on your head.
Oh my God! It never stops. It just never ends. I'm going to make a Skechers hat. It looks like that shoe.
I cannot believe Skechers has not contacted you for
it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think we've given more promotion to Skechers than we have to any electronic cigarette company.
Absolutely. All right, so let's wrap it up. Phil, I am going to turn to you first for final thoughts on tonight's episode.
I just gave all my final thoughts. That whole speech about converting smokers and living longer and seeing your kids and your grandkids. I gave the whole speech already. You give a speech.
Anything else that you want to add?
No, there's nothing else that I want to add, except that always enjoy my time here with you, Dimitri. I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather do this show with. And what's coming up on the Smoker Show next Tuesday?
Well, we don't have
Smoker Show, Smoke Free Radio.
I am going to be traveling next Tuesday, so there will be no Smoke Free Radio. I will be flying to Greece, but I will try to get a couple episodes in from there. I'm going to try to take 2 or 3 weeks off because it has been a very, very long year. It's been a very trying year for me, and just a lot of stuff going on in my personal life and a lot of stuff going on in, of course, work life. So I just want to spend some time with my family and enjoy Greece. I do have some work when I get there the first week. And then after that, in July, I was trying to take 2 or 3 weeks to try to enjoy it. So, of course, stay tuned to my social media at Vaping Greek, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on that as well, too. So, I might have a surprise tomorrow or Thursday, along with Brent Stafford. There might be an emergency smoke-free episode, so look for that as well, too. There's some really bad breaking news that is happening right now within the industry. Again, that's vapor-related, not smoking, so I'm working on that as well, too. But other than that, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the Smoker Show. I really, really enjoying this. And I'm very, very happy to hear your comments, people that are reaching out to us, telling us that we're making a difference. That really, really means a lot to us. And, of course, thank you to our sponsors, Innikin, Joyetech, and, of course, 5 Signature Vapor Liquid from California. We're going to get to see them this weekend as well, too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be there. And I'm going to kick your ass in the go-karts, by the way. Just letting you know.
Probably will.
I don't think you have the driving skills that I do. Well, maybe in Greece you do, but not in the go-kart.
I've driven you all over the world, buddy, and you've always been safe.
You have. I've always been safe.
Also,
nervous as hell? Yes.
Yeah, I know. Also, you didn't say nothing about nothing breaking during the show.
Okay, no. Well, I alluded to it before. Okay, but I didn't want to say anything because I thought it would put the jinx on the show. But I think this is the very first Smoker Show where we haven't had a glitch anywhere. I think so. Nobody complained about echo. The phone lines worked. Everything worked, even with the panic over my laptop before the show started. So, Dimitri, fantastic job, my friend. Fantastic.
It only took me 11 episodes. Guys, we will see you again next time.